Welcome to another episode of Grind Culture Podcast. I am Ed.
I am Colton.
And today we have a guest, as you can see to my right. We have a Mr. Nathan Flade. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
That's right.
I always thought it was Flad.
I've gotten Flad. I've gotten Flade.
Okay. Well,
People trying to be fancy.
Nathan Flade, Nate for short. Do you go by any other nicknames? Or have you gone by any other nicknames?
In high school, used to be called Nathanator.
Mm-hmm.
That was my skateboard name. But after that was about it. Now let's go by Nate.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Right on.
Yeah, so we have Nate, who we work with. Nate is, I would say, just a self-taught professional, and it seems like almost everything coffee.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like you know coffee as well as anybody here. Is that because, I want to get into introductions, but I have so many questions for Nick because I'm just fascinated by you as far as like your eagerness to learn.
Yeah.
But actually, let's do this. Let's have you speak. Tell us about yourself, where you came from, what you thought, like what were you doing before this?
Yeah.
What got you into coffee, and kind of like what you do now here for us.
Yeah. So initially, I'll just give an introduction to myself.
Yep.
Obviously, my name's Nate. I'm 22 years old. Work here with these guys. Very great. As far as my coffee background goes, it's really interesting because I started off just with a Mr. Coffee pot.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have any interest in pursuing anything coffee.
Uh-huh.
I was really just kind of like, coffee's a commodity, like everybody drinks it. I actually didn't like the taste of coffee for a long time.
Since what do you think you started, or when was your first taste of coffee? If you could go back to that day, do you remember when your first day of coffee, like just a sip of it?
That's really hard. I think it went back to, there's actually a coffee house in Riverside, Daily Brew. I think Colton knows about it too.
Yeah, very good.
And that was actually my first introduction to kind of like, oh, this is like what specialty coffee tastes like. Because initially I just had Starbucks, and my mom, she'd be like, let's go Starbucks, it's a BOGO. But ever since I drank that, it was kind of like, oh, okay, like there's different flavors that are kind of like out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that kind of sparked an interest in me. And I remember in high school, I actually just had that Mr. Coffee pot, but I eventually gained enough money for my job, and I decided to go out and get a Bodum, which is like a little pour over. Kind of looks like a Chemex. It's like a little face-shaped one.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like a learning curve because it was like you have a metal filter and it's not paper, so all of the water just like drains like rapidly through.
Right.
So I just had like watery coffee the whole time, and I was just like getting frustrated. I was like, I'm never gonna be able to do this. Like I was like, this is not something that I want to do. I think I actually quit for like a week because I got so frustrated.
Just drinking coffee, you quit?
Yeah. Because I'm very like, when I was younger, I was very like, I need to like get it. And that's also where I think a lot of the skills that I was taught comes from, because I'm very hard on myself, even though it doesn't seem like it, and I kind of joke around a lot. I'm very hard on myself, and that's why even like with like latte art stuff, like I think I take it to an extreme, almost an extent, where like if I don't get it, like that swan freaking took me like forever to learn. It's taken me 5 years to eventually like perfect. And like I remember there was days where like I would just go home, try to practice it, and like I would just be like slamming my pitcher down. I'd be like, dude, like how are people doing this? Like this doesn't make sense.
Easy,
But yeah, no, with especially my coffee background, like going back to the Bodum, I remember that was kind of my first challenge where like I was like, okay, so like how can I make it better? How can I make better coffee? And that introduced me to James Hoffman. And then that became a whole like rabbit hole of just kind of figuring things out. I remember I went out and bought some, I think it was like the Hario V60 filters. And I didn't even have a Hario V60. I just put them into like the little cheap Bodum one. And I remember like I was grinding it too fine, and it came out obviously too bitter, and then it was coarse and ran through. that was really just like my first challenge in coffee.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been a long journey. Over those 5 years, I mean, you kind of go from like little like stepping blocks where it's like you're kind of learning the basics. And it's like, what is coffee? How do you brew good coffee? And like, how is everybody else kind of doing it?
Right.
And then you go to like, obviously, kind of exploring and like figuring things out and kind of trying to, I guess, expand your palate.
Mm-hmm.
Because you definitely, like, even our cuppings, like, I think that's kind of the thing that's cool is like getting people to like try coffee and getting them to do latte art, because it's like one of those learning curves where it's like, I can't do it. And I think it brings me back to like when I first started, because it's like you doubt yourself a lot because you're just like, and it's the same thing. Like I remember even like in other hobbies I've had, like skateboarding and like whatever, it's like that. And I think it takes that like extra shove to like push you forward for somebody to really like try it. And I think people are scared because it's like they don't want to embarrass themselves, or like they think it's too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people doubt what they're capable of.
Well, I think that's just good on anything really that you're trying to accomplish. It seems like you have determination and like a really good work ethic when you actually find something you like and you try to perfect it.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of saw that in you already, just like by the amount of time that I've known you. How long have you been here actually?
It's been like what?
9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
It's almost a year.
Jeez, in the 9 months that I've known you, that's crazy. It's been 9 months. Seems like yesterday. I could just see like, yeah, it's not like obsessive compulsive, but you do have like an obsession of like perfecting something.
Oh yeah.
So
and,
yeah,
I mean, I want to like touch on that. Like, I think it's really cool, just from like where you're at, because I mean you're a decade younger than us, and you're already like
trying to.
Like you're better than at latte art than us for sure.
yeah, way better. And how does that happen? I mean, because like how old are you?
22.
So. Yeah,
So
decade younger.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like I say, it's been a stumbling block, because I even have pictures that I like go back over of like when I first started doing latte art, and it was like I'd be trying to do a leaf and just come out like a blob. And I remember like back then, like that was a really big accomplishment to me. Like I was like, oh cool, like I got something that kind of resembles like what everybody else is doing. But I think the place where it sparked was actually Starbucks, because I worked there for 2 years, became a shift supervisor. And I remember like using the big, like, I don't even know how big they're, like 32-ounce jugs.
Huge,
And like I would just be doing my latte art with it. And I have like a bunch of pictures of like just different like latte arts that I did.
Right.
And I think it just comes with repetition and like really dedicating yourself. And I think to me having ADHD and like kind of hyperfixating, I guess, it kind of like forces me to like really dedicate myself. But I think, yeah, it's just repetition. Like even this, actually like with Starbucks, I had worked there for those 2 years, and I remember I had actually like really started to hate coffee, like really started to hate it.
For what reason?
I just like, I came in to the wrong place with the wrong motivation and ambition. I think because I was in that stage where I was learning James Hoffman, I was learning about Lance Hedrick, I was learning about all these different people, and I was like super excited, and like I had all these ideas and like things that I was like trying to do. And I remember like I came in and it was just like almost like somebody like hitting you over the head with like a bat and being like, no, don't do that. Like almost like you would try and like kind of be like creative, and then it was like this nope, like push you back in line. And I get it, like they have like standards, like they need to keep everything consistent.
Yeah, you can't really experiment at Starbucks, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's kind of I had actually gotten my coffee master's there too, and I remember for my because you have to do like a little presentation, I actually did James Hoffman's like method of like kind of laying out different coffees and like testing acidity and salinity and all those different things. And it was funny because like everybody's like, wow, oh my gosh. It's like,
oh really?
Yeah, they were like, it was crazy. And then I think I I actually got invited to like their farm, and I think it was like Guatemala or Honduras. It was like Hacienda.
Okay.
And I decided to not go because I was with my girlfriend at the time that I'm still with, and I think I was just kind of like, well, if she can't go, then I feel like I don't want to go all the way to this like different country.
Oh, you feel like guilty?
I guess in a way, kind of, because it was like they're gonna like pay for like a hotel and like a flight, and I was kind of like, well, I was like, I mean now, because actually next year I think I'm going to kind of Honduras area, and I really want to try the coffee out there. So I was like, I guess it came kind of round full circle.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely like, I think during that period, going back to Starbucks, I had quit my job, and like I remember my first manager was really, really cool. Like I really like enjoyed like having them there. And then there were some issues with like the second manager and all that. And I remember we had like a falling out, and there was like a whole type of thing where it was like, I just got done working there because I felt like I just wasn't appreciated, or like I was doing a lot of work. But I had ended up quitting, and then I remember like just leaving, and like I had my Breville Bambino just like sitting on the counter, and I was just like looking at it, and I was like, dude, like I just don't want to touch this thing. Like I don't even want to touch this. I have no motivation to like even like attempt it. And I remember for like a good solid like 4 months, I didn't touch that machine. And like I remember every time like a coffee video would come up, I'd just be like, no, like I don't want to see it.
Right. Burnt out.
Yeah, I was just like done. And I remember it wasn't until I had started working at, I think it was like Target or something. I was kind of like, I was like, okay, well, it's been a little bit longer. I feel like realistically it's not coffee's fault. It's just something else with that situation.
Right.
And I remember like I started kind of attempting, and I remember like making latte art and being on the Bambino again. And I think it was funny because like I remembered how much I loved doing it, because I got to take that break and not be like just kind of like, oh, coffee needs to be pushed out.
Yeah.
Like I think it was cool like falling back in love with coffee, and then getting to the point where like I am now, where it's like doing like crazier latte arts. I think I honestly came back better than I was before.
Yeah.
And I think I learned a lot more than before because I took the time to like let myself heal.
So it's like you fell in love with coffee. You saw like the third wave kind of push the specialty coffee outside of like your generic coffee, and then you got hired on at Starbucks, and they were just like, no.
Oh yeah.
So they put a bad taste in your mouth for what specialty coffee and the specialty coffee industry actually is. So I understand, like, if I worked at Starbucks first before this job, I'd have been like, I don't want anything to do with coffee too. So let's talk about, now that you're here, now how do you see coffee?
I love coffee.
Yeah.
Did you working here give you a better love for coffee, or like did it expand like your knowledge and your like appreciation and your love for coffee when you started here 9 months ago?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where I think it's so cool because like this having this place in general, because there's like basically no real like roasteries out here. I mean, I think we're really the only one.
Yeah, the press is like the only one, but even there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do micro lots.
Right.
But I mean, they do a really good job too. But I think it's cool having this big of a roastery, and then having a team where like it's kind of mixed, because it's kind of cool to see, like, I mean, it's you, me, Gavin, Colton, and I think it's really cool like having those people who are really into coffee, and then seeing like the people who are kind of just like getting into coffee, and this place is kind of like forming them into people who are going to love coffee. I think it like just in general, not even for me, like it gives an appreciation for everybody, like with coffee, just learning what it is. I think it's cool like seeing just people in general when they first start here, like not really know what coffee is, and then start explaining it and like showing them different things, and like they start falling in love with it in a sense. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I feel like we're all like in certain levels of like just coffee appreciation. you're obviously like high up there. I still have like, admittedly, I still have like yet to go to know as much as you, or even if I'm being truthful, like care as much as you, just because my life doesn't allow me to sometimes. But having, I get what you mean by having people that even have like a little bit of a passion or interest as same as you do makes working anywhere so much better.
Oh yeah.
And like, it doesn't even have to be coffee. Like I could talk to Colton about being dads or family men or anything like that, really anything. And I got to talk to you about coffee and music and so on and so forth. And then like DJ, like sports. It just, the team that we say this all the time, the team that we have here. Also, you're an avid listener.
Yeah,
I appreciate you. I appreciate that. And we appreciate that you are like that, because that also helps. Like, oh yeah, Nate cares. Nate cares about the team. He cares about like our outside projects and what we do.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. Like I feel that sense of like family and community and camaraderie here.
Oh yeah,
as
definitely.
probably as well as you do.
Yeah, and I think a good thing you brought to the team was that sense of pushing coffee to its limits, to the sense of like, you'll come up to me and talk about flavor profiles or roasting profiles and things like that, and it kind of keeps me on my toes outside of my normal stuff. And I'm like, oh, I should, you know, if I do have time, I should be broadening my palate, my experiences, my profession of coffie, you know. So it's like you do bring that to the team to where you want to push coffee to be the best that it can be. So you're not only doing that, but you're also have dipped your toes into home roasting.
Oh yeah.
So you're one of the few, maybe the only one, that actually has brought the roaster home. We have a little sample roaster for anybody who doesn't know. And you started roasting at home, started buying green coffee, started experimenting. So tell us a little bit about that and what you've kind of learned through that process.
Oh yeah, I think it's super cool, because like starting here and then like seeing you roast coffee in the beginning and then now seeing Gavin roast coffee, I think it was always kind of like, I understood like a little bit of it, and I understood like obviously like there's city and then city plus and then full city to where it's like dark roast and whatever. But I never really understood like fully like how much effort goes into it and like the art of roasting in itself.
Right.
Because it really is. Like, I mean, like I was listening to a podcast, I think a month ago, and it was crazy because it was like them talking about how like a 2-degree difference like makes such an impact, and the airflow and everything. Like, I think it really is, it's crazy. And like buying, well, I'll start with the fresh roast. That was definitely a challenge. Like, kind of learning like this, how much heat to put into the roaster, how like much, I mean, because of that you're messing with air, so you want like the bed to be obviously rotating constantly. And I think it's crazy like messing with the fan and just seeing like how much of a difference it makes. But I think that was really a cool experience, because it was like seeing that green coffee bean turn into what we make. And kind of tasting it. And like, of course, like your first batch is never going to be good, because like, especially when you're learning, like it's always a like stumbling block, I guess.
Right.
Where it's just like, you're not going to get it the first time.
Yeah.
And I remember after like, I think I've roasted like 30 batches with that fresh roast.
Yeah, you roasted a lot.
I've roasted a lot. Yeah. And it's definitely cool, like finally getting to a point where like it kind of started tasting good. But eventually, like, I decided that I wanted to move on to a better roaster. And that's when I got like the actual one that holds like a kilo. Yeah. And that's been real fun.
Yeah, and you've roasted some really good coffee on it so far.
Yeah, it's definitely like different, because obviously our roasters have like a big flame that's under it, versus a little camping stove that you have to try and mess with. And I think it's definitely a humbling experience, because you're like sitting there with like a little roaster on, basically on a rotisserie spit with like a flame under it, and you're like trying to make sure that it's going good.
Right. Is it manual? Do you have to rotate it?
No, it's on like as a motor, and then like you put the thermometer in, which mine actually melted because it went up to like 490, and then it just like completely started bending.
Where do you roast in your house? Where do you do all of this?
I roast in my garage, because now I was using the fresh roast, and my dad was like, "Take it outside." He's like, "I can't take it anymore."
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, there's good smells in coffees, but mostly it's your roasting. It's not very.
It's not a good smell.
Or it's not pleasant.
Yeah,
for your
it's
home.
not.
That's really funny. Good to see your dad.
Oh yeah.
Take that outside. What are you doing?
Oh, he did. He was like, "Just use the extension cord." I was
Use
like,
the
okay.
extension cord.
All right.
So, yeah, going back to just like, again, you saying you're not going to get it the first time. I think when you have an understanding of like, you seem like very patient with the art of coffee, where you give yourself time and then you perfect it. How old are you, by the way?
22.
You asked him that. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Just told us he's 22.
Oh yeah. It just blows my mind. You're so young. You're so,
right.
and I'm so old now.
Yeah.
You're so young and you just know all this
You
stuff.
can tell he's forgetting.
You guys aren't
I'm
old.
just kidding.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
cool to be in that position. Like,
It is,
I
yeah.
wish I was where I was now at your age.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's it's definitely. You guys aren't old, by the way. But I think it's definitely like it's definitely interesting to see, because I know a lot of people my age, their focus really isn't like on something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very rare. Like even like a lot of the people I see my age are just like going out to Venice Beach, partying, drinking, doing stuff like that.
Mhm.
And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. Like you can do whatever you want.
Right.
But I think for me, I've always been somebody who's like, I'm going to stay away from it. And instead of wasting the time that I would spend doing that, I'd rather dedicate it to doing something that is going to be like a useful tool for me.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, all throughout my life too, like even through high school, I've always been somebody who's wanted to be like having my own business, having something to work for. Like I remember even like back in high school, I had like a little skateboard brand. It did not do good. But it was called The Progression.
Yeah.
And I had like little stickers. I had the logo that I drew.
Nice.
But yeah, I feel like that motivation never really left me. I think it's very hard for me to find something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
Like coffee is the one thing that I've solidly stayed with,
Yeah.
because hobbies in general for me just like usually flow. But this is like stayed. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different like avenues that you can go down in coffee, and even whatever business you get into, it's like you can somehow implement coffee.
Oh yeah.
So you're striving to be a coffee professional, and I think if you keep going along these lines and keep like seeking out more education and experimenting, you're gonna get to a point to where when you're our age, you're gonna exceed so much and so many people that start when they're 30, start when they're 40. Because I mean, coffee, it seems like a lot of people do as like a retirement thing almost. Like they get into home roasting and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So, and it's cool. So not only getting into roasting, you also have started your own brand.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about
You've
that.
also learned how to make syrups, like homemade syrups.
Oh yeah.
What else have you done? You're also, and we talked about like latte art. You're striving to be a latte art competitor, and like we keep telling you, encouraging you to like push it.
Oh yeah. And I
because you're
appreciate
already so good. I
Yeah.
mean, imagine you pushing yourself at this level for 3 years.
Oh yeah.
Imagine.
Dude, 25,
25?
still young, and just taking over the freaking competition scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
25 still young.
no, seriously. So like, there's a lot of encouragement there
Oh, yeah.
that you should strive to be. But going back to starting your own coffee label, tell us what the name is. Tell us what the vision
Oh, yeah.
behind it is, the meaning,
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff. And we'll make sure to give your tags and
Oh, yeah, no
everything
worries.
down below in this episode. So.
Yeah, so I own a company named Inspirato Coffee Roasters. It's actually been something that's been in the back of my mind for, I think, about 3 years now.
Yeah.
Because I've always kind of thought about it, and I was like trying to think of like different names, and I think I came up with like a whole bunch of like different ones and made logos and stuff, and none of them ever really worked out.
What are some of them that were on the drawing board that never were used?
I honestly don't remember. I just know I had the list.
Yeah.
But I remember like coming across Inspirato, and I had actually been staying there for like a year, and I think I was like, or I was reading like some type of like thing about Italian words and just kind of like different like meanings to them, because I think I was trying to research like just the language in general.
Mm.
And Inspirato came up because it's inspiration, and I think I was just like, oh, okay, that's like, sounds like it could be a good name.
Yeah.
And then like, of course, my logo is a hummingbird, and I don't think I like really anticipated it to be that. I thought it was gonna be something else. But then I found it, and I was like, oh, it's a cool match. Like, I was like, I really like that art style, and I was like, I'm really into like Victorian drawings, like how Trader Joe's kind of does their stuff.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. I found that. And then from there, it was really just opportunity and like finding the time to really research, because obviously you guys have your business. And I think so far the coolest experience has been just kind of like developing all the labels and like seeing all that.
Yeah.
I've also done an event before, and that was cool, like just seeing like people line up and kind of like taste coffee. Sorry about that. And that was like really cool, because like the last day it was like I came in, there was like a whole line to my table.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and that was like a really cool experience.
Yeah.
But I think for me, as it is now, I think there is still like I guess motivation to do it.
Yeah.
But there's also, I've recently taken up kind of doing more of like a, I guess like an influencer thing. There's like posting videos and like stuff like that. So obviously Inspirato always is integrated into it and comes first, but I think it's like cool doing both. I enjoy both, and I think it's a cool experience.
Yeah, if you could get one, I mean, we talk about our businesses and the struggles and the progression and the obstacles of running a business, but if like there's a niche that you could get into and then you could perfect it and then have the business be something connected to it or a part of it,
Yeah.
I think that's like what you got. Like, that's the way to go, because everybody wants to support the person, not necessarily the product at first, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I think Brian tells us that all the time, and so I always listen to him about that. But yeah, Inspirato, I really love what you did. And when you mentioned starting the business of, was it a skateboarding business?
Yeah, it's called The Progression, actually.
You say you kind of went fully. And I've seen that firsthand. You don't half-ass anything when you start something.
Yeah, I know.
Especially your business, because you put a lot of work into it. You put a lot of thought into it. You ask me questions, Colton questions, Brian questions. Like it really seems like you care about like,
oh yeah,
just anything that you do. And I know I keep saying that, but like it's very inspiring, even like as a young person like you, and me being older than you, and just seeing that, I was like, God, I wish I had that drive. Like even a little bit of that when I was your age. But yeah, Inspirato, go check them out if you're listening. The website is also cool. I've seen the website. I love everything about it. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely it's cool like seeing some of the orders too and like getting to pack it. But I think especially with that influencer side and trying to like make Inspirato something towards that, so then I can gradually move over to like having that kind of full time. I think it is cool, because I think that's one of the things that me and Brian were talking. It was kind of one of those things where like it kind of gives you an insight of like it's right, like when it's the person that is in front of like those people, it really makes an impact of showing them who the brand is about and like what inspires the brand. And I think without that, you just have an empty store with really no meaning.
Right. Yeah, I can actually see it. Like I can see you actually out doing events, like getting people stoked on coffee. And not only like just serving bad coffee and, you know, giving people a little bit of knowledge. It's like, no, you have like all the background steps. You can totally nerd out on somebody that wants to talk about coffee. You can talk about every step from the farming to the roasting to the brewing. Like you can talk about that all, which is really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I can actually see you like in a coffee shop / roastery called Inspirata, like coffee roasters, and like having that whole vibe that you have with your label already. Like it'd be such a dope shop.
Oh yeah, it'd be really cool.
Is that what's
Especially
next?
in this area? Yeah.
You think for you and like is your coffee journey? Like that's what I want to know. Is like I've seen you do so many things with coffee. I find it like I can't wrap my head around like what else is next for Nate as far as like the coffee world goes, or I mean I know what you're saying you're trying to do like your influencer stuff for like that's coffee related.
Oh yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Is there something beyond that you like strive for, that like you have a goal set? Like,
yeah. I think definitely one of the goals I've always had is, and it's like a really ambitious goal, but it's to do the world championship at least one time in my life, even if it's like when I'm older or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be super cool. Even if like I don't win, it would just be cool to like have that life experience and meet like the people that I literally watch every day. Because I know James Hoffman goes there, Morgan Eckroth, she goes there. There's like a bunch of people that would be really cool to meet.
Yeah.
And obviously that's just like a whole thing of like researching different things about coffee, because there's like a whole different playing field of things that these people do there that I mean that would take years.
What specifically would you like, how would you want to participate in it?
I definitely want to compete, just like
the latte art or the more the Brewers Cup side of things.
I think maybe that's a hard one. I would think maybe Brewers. I think I would have a better chance only because I've seen some of the friggin' latte art that people do over there, and it's like insane. Like to the point where like it makes my swan look like it's a tulip or something. Like
but that's what they're doing like 24/7. That's their job pretty much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of those people are baristas. But I think too, like just besides that, like even I mean eventually the goal would be to have like a shop at some point. And I think that'd be really cool. I mean, I think the goal for me has always been to share the love of coffee with people. And I think it's not so much, and it sounds bad to say, and I know money is important, but I think the problem for me too is that I love seeing people enjoy coffee and learn about coffee. And there's been times where like I've even given away some of my brewers and stuff just to like let those people have it.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, I think that the more selfless you are with something like that, it inspires more people to participate in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. I'm like talking to people about coffee. I'm like, I just need to buy you something. And then I buy them like a little home kit. I was like, okay, this is how you do it. And I'll send them like a YouTube video on how to like do a pour over. And I'll send them like a little kit. So
yeah. And I've always been like that. Like I feel like I've never been like, oh no, this is mine. You can't have it.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like this is cool to like share with somebody and like to see the inspiration that it leaves, I guess.
Yeah. And hence Inspirata
Inspirata.
Coffee, man.
That's
like
right.
The Inspirado.
So that's pretty cool if you think about it. All your goals that you just mentioned, you could do by your time you're 30.
Yeah, easily.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
That's
And
true.
Like so, like you say, it's ambitious, but it's not really. Ambitious would be saying, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to start like one of the biggest coffee companies like in the world.
Yeah.
That type of. But for those things, don't put a cap on yourself, man. Like you could take it there easily.
That's true.
Especially with the right people behind you, like motivating you.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I appreciate it too, man. Like that's the thing. I mean, you guys have always been very supportive too. I think that's kind of cool. That's also another reason too. That's just like cool working here, because it's like you have people who enjoy coffee and want to support you, rather than like when you're talking to somebody and they don't really know anything about it, and it's just like you're kind of like, oh, okay, cool, like sure,
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely hard, and I don't know if you guys have encountered this, but like doing a brand, or like when people see you succeeding in a certain way, it brings about almost like not jealousy, but it brings about like you start to see people closest to you start to churn on you a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I feel like there's been some times, like even like just with past things, like little hobbies and stuff, that it seems like maybe that kind of has a churn around.
Right.
So I think it's cool, like having somebody that actively supports and like kind of pushes you to your limits.
Yeah, and those are the types of people that have a cap on themselves.
Oh yeah.
You know, or they see me and Ed were actually talking about like kind of parents and like their kids on having like a cap on what their kids should be. You know, what they should amount to be. A lot of parents have caps on the standards, right? But a good parent, a loving parent, is someone that's like, no, my kid should be better than me.
Oh yeah.
You know, so that's like the types of friends, types of family that should be around you. Be like, okay, he's passionate about it.
Oh yeah.
He can do really anything. He can take over the world, whatever, you know? So like that's the type of people that should be behind you. And then you'll learn too, the type of people that aren't, like you're saying. The people that either get jealous of your success, the people that think you're a joke because they think coffee's a joke, and they're like, coffee's coffee. Like, why would you even start a profession?
A lot of people like that.
So yeah, me too. But it's like, no, you just gotta do you, man, and keep pushing it. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything in coffee that you don't like, so let's talk about anything in coffee that you don't like, or maybe in the coffee industry.
Yeah.
With stuff that's very controversial, like with coffee profiles. I know you wanted to touch on that. So,
I definitely think one of the things that I just can't understand for the life of me is like when people actively buy Cappy Luwak. It's almost like one of those things where it's like, it's because it's so gross and so expensive.
What is it?
Cappy Luwak. It's like where like the civets, they have them, and it's actually really like almost like animal abuse process, because they lock them in these cages.
Is that the coffee poop?
Yeah, where they like eat them and then poop them out. But it's actually kind of abusive, because they just like lock them in these tiny cages and force them to eat it. But they sell this for like freaking tons of money. And people say it just tastes like poop.
Yeah, admittedly, I brought some to work because my in-laws, they went to Bali actually, and they got some of that coffee there. Yeah. And I brought it just like, I didn't really know anything about it until like they kind of like shed some light on me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll bring this to work and maybe the people will know about this. It didn't taste good at all. And I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna try this again. I don't care for it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like one of those things that's like I can't understand it. Another thing that I get it when I was in the beginning of my coffee stages, and I think like with flavor coffee, as I've gotten more professional into this side, I think I've kind of pushed away for it like a little bit. Not that I don't understand it, but I just think that it would be more beneficial for people to like taste the origins, I guess. And kind of expand their palates too.
Is that apart from lattes? Are you talking about just like standard black coffee? Like
just in general with like flavor coffee, like that you buy at the store, like hazelnut. Or like anything like that. I think too, like, I remember in the beginning, I think I was buying like grocery coffee like all the time. And as I've gotten further into my career now, it's like you look at that coffee and you're like, oh dang, like I don't think a lot of people realize like how long it's been sitting there, or like how long it takes from like where that roaster is to get to the grocery store. Right. Because a lot of those like coffees, like even I was watching a video yesterday about like Starbucks, and they have like a huge roaster, and they ship it out. But it's funny because like that coffee is probably fresh where it's roasted, and then by the time it gets like the grocery stores, it's like already been months up to a year.
Yeah, it's already stale. It's already lost. If there's any origin flavor profiles in there, it's gone.
Oh yeah, especially if it's ground.
Yeah, and that's how they're doing like generic flavored coffee, like you mentioned. They roast it, burn it usually. Oh yeah. And it's who knows what coffee they're putting in, who knows what blends are in it. Because if you look at a lot of those, they don't even say the origins, anything. It's just like a hazelnut coffee, hazelnut flavored coffee. So. And then they grind it. They run it through a, what do you call it?
It's like a conveyor belt.
Yeah. And then that gets misted with flavor. Yeah. Artificial too, not even natural a lot of the times. And then it's bagged up, shipped, and it's like 6 months later, maybe if you're lucky, where it's in the shelves and you're buying it. So it's really the only thing you're getting out of that coffee is the caffeine kick.
Oh yeah.
That's the only thing that's left. And yeah, maybe the flavor, taste, and all that stuff. But even I was there at one point. I can still remember this day, like buying hazelnut coffee and being like, oh, it smells so good.
Really?
Of course it's gonna smell good. Like flavors smell good, you know, and you do get a little hint of coffee. So
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you? When's I actually have a good fond memory of, not fond, but I remember my first like taste of flavored coffee. And I used to work in like the Midwest when I was living there, and every gas station has like a hazelnut coffee.
Oh yeah.
And I used to just get a gas station coffee and drink the hazelnut
Classic.
coffee like on my road trips.
Yeah.
And I used to love it, and now I was like, oh yeah, probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's definitely like I don't know. I think the first time I had flavored coffee was in a Keurig, and it was like one of those little pods, and it was I think it was like Green Mountain Roasters or whatever they're called.
for sure.
And they had hazelnut, and I popped it in, and I remember it was just like the wateriest coffee I ever had in my life. But back then I was like, hey, this is what coffee is.
You put hazelnut creamer in
Yeah.
it.
I think I felt I think I did too.
Yeah.
And it's just funny, like looking back at that, because like, and I think with coffee too, it's one of those things where like, I feel like for us we geek out about it, and like nerd out about it, and I think it's funny because like you mentioned earlier, the people that like are like, why would you get so invested in a coffee? Like, why would you do this or that? But then I think it's funny when like they have something that they're passionate about, like whiskey tasting or like cigars. And it's funny because if you were to say that to them, they'd be like what? Like this is it's my passion. It's kind of funny. It's the same thing reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And then look at the dollar signs on the coffee industry.
Oh yeah. It's like I don't see many. I mean, whiskey's doing good too, but I
Yeah.
feel like coffee is way above whiskey.
I believe so.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I didn't check the numbers, but I probably would imagine so. So Nate, what's your opinion on, like, I know you kind of like touched up on it just like briefly, but as far as like here goes, what is like your favorite thing to do? What do you like aspire to do here? Or, like, what would you want to like take from working at TCR?
Oh
like,
yeah.
To some like outside,
Yeah.
like hobbies or any outside work or something.
I think definitely one of my favorite things about working here is just the people. I think in general, like, I don't view this job as like, I guess really a job. Like, I mean, I obviously know like we come here and do work.
Right.
But I think that it's become more of like almost like a second home because I feel like I spend a lot of time here. And I think that it's definitely a place where there is a lot of growth. I think that there's an opportunity for growth because I think a lot of the other companies I work for, it's just like you're there and yeah, maybe you'll move up to like a supervisor or something. But aside from that, that's like your cutoff. Like there's no, you're basically just working for them for like however long you work for them. And it feels like there's not really an appreciation.
Yeah.
Whereas here it feels like we're constantly appreciated. There's definitely, I enjoy like our meetings and just talking and doing things like that. I think like just working here in general has been like a really good experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like one of those things where it's a learning experience. I think too with just getting to gain the knowledge about roasting and getting beyond here for a little bit and then just starting and packing and kind of doing that. I think it would be a wise choice to stay here longer because it's like we're so small and we're starting out that I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to expand. And I'm sure along the way there will be people who don't see that and choose to move on. But I think my plan would be to stay here for as long as I can and just grow with you guys rather than, I mean, there's no point in getting another job or something and then being like, oh yeah, I'm going to leave for $1 more. And then it's like, okay, it's like $1 more. And then this place will already be like taken off.
Yeah. I think that's what I love that we built here. Cause I know we all say like, oh, it doesn't feel like work. And it, like, I bet from like the listeners, they're like, oh, they just must have fun.
Yeah, mess around.
It's like, no, we have built this place into a beast. Like we all know the standard. Like we all know that the foundation is hard work, we all know the foundation of what we have to do to get it done. We all know our roles. We all know those things. We all know how to honor our, the owners, Brian and Carrie. We know how to honor them and what they want and their vision. Like, we all know that, but we got so good at it, and we're getting so good at it. Anything else that kind of comes in is just like we're able to kind of flow. Yeah. It's not like we're really bad at our job. We're just goofing off at work. Like, that's not what it is. It's like this is a very professional, like, legit place, and I think that's what I love, and yes, we have gone through ups and downs and many people, but it's like we're finding people that see the vision, that love coffee, and that are bringing new ideas, right? So it's like Ed has built like this whole new marketing side of things. It's I'm able to manage and push new ideas and build a team, and you're bringing in new ideas and keeping people accountable on just like how good coffee can be. And it's like you can probably, one day once you learn roasting and all those things, it's like you pushing to do that, and you'll like figure out new things to do. Have it be like bringing people in and getting them inspired about coffee, like about like cuppings or whatever it may be. I think it's sweet. Yeah, it is. I feel like when we say like, it's just a fun place to be, like cool people, it's like, no, we're like legit, and that's where it started. We're legit, and on top of that, since we are so good at our jobs, and since we all see it, then we're able to enjoy this place. It's not it's not like we're a small, little building. We're just messing around trying to like make a living. That's what I see, and I know I appreciate it all. And we can see it. It's just growing more and more, and people that start here after us, we're able to inspire them and get them on board. And even if they're here for only a short time, it's like I think everybody that works here is inspired a little bit. Even if they move to a new profession, they kind of carry that with them. Yeah. And they're probably working at that place now, and they're like, dang.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Oh, no, something like that. But I get it, and life happens, but yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think there's been, just even from when I started, there's been a sense of like, obviously, there's that side of being here that's very professional, and I think you have to be a certain kind of worker, have a certain kind of work ethic to really nail it down. Because I think it is like because I've met people who naturally like they just aren't very fast paced. And it takes a lot for them to kind of get in that zone. But I feel like, for me anyways, there's always been like, I like pushing. Like I like being on my toes. I like moving around. Like sitting down for me is like painful. It's just like, I can't sit for long periods of time.
Right.
But I think that it's really cool seeing that the team that we have now, like it does flow. Like I feel like and I don't think that with the team that we have, it's not like, if somebody's having an off day or like they're slacking a little bit or whatever, because I've had days like that where I'm just like kind of not in the zone. I'm kind of like, oh crud, like I gotta like pack all this. But I think that we never, I guess, kind of blame each other. I think we just kind of like take it as like, okay, we're gonna pick each other up and we're gonna keep going. Like just keep it going.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I like too, is that there's no drama. Like it's just, if something's wrong, like we fix it and we move on from it. Like
that's true.
Yeah, that's good. So I guess final thoughts, and a good question that we can ask you is, other than everything we just talked about, is there any education in the coffee world that you'd like to pursue?
I definitely think more of the scientific side. I think that, I kind of understand a lot of the general basis and some of the more advanced stuff, but I think there's always things coming out. And I love James Hoffman because he keeps me on my toes all the time. Because it's like,
for sure.
It's like there's always different things to learn. I think that coffee is such a evolving platform that, it's like all the time, like there's something to learn. Like there's been the whiskey ball trend that came out on TikTok, and it was like, it hits the whiskey ball, and then the tannins are supposed to be a lot more potent, or it's supposed to keep its potency.
Keep it in,
and I think that was cool. And there's just like a whole bunch of different things. I've actually been experimenting with something. I told Colton about this. But I've been trying to figure out, because one of the problems with the V60 and that everybody complains about is like that they wish there was a method where it's constantly moving while it's brewing, so it's an even distribution. And I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, why doesn't somebody just take like one of those electric whisks and then kind of with like the coffee brewing down, because I was thinking about how to do it, because I've been doing some tests. I was like, I would think that the coffee would have to be a little bit coarser, and then use the electric whisk to get more of like a velocity going and then drain down. I think it could potentially produce like a smoother coffee rather than just the normal method.
You're having it like get choked out.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, cool.
Anyways, that was our episode with our good friend Nate. Hopefully we'll get to see more of Nate in future episodes, and obviously we'll have stories of Nate as we do stories with all of our employees. But another episode of Grind Culture Podcast. Peace.
All right.
Peace.